Welcome. I have misplaced my little sheet, my little cheat sheet. Probably don't need it. I've been talking about this show for 3 months straight. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today, coming in out of the heat to the nice, cool Witzel Auditorium. I'd like to first, so I'm Deana Dartt. I'm the curator of Native American art here at the Portland Art Museum. Thank you, Stephanie Parrish and Betsy Conop for getting things underway for us here. And thank you all for coming from miles and miles away. The beautiful Karen Kramer from the Peabody Essex Museum, the curator of Native Fashion Now, Dorothy Grant came all the way from Vancouver and is heading to Juneau when she leaves here. Patricia Michaels hails from Taos, New Mexico, and Wendy Ponca all the way from Oklahoma. So welcome to you all, and welcome to you all. To get us underway, I'm just going to talk briefly about the trajectory, the sort of life of Native American art at the Portland Art Museum briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who's going to talk about this show and her vision that conceived it, and sort of talk about a little bit about it structurally, and then each of these artists are going to talk about their work. And then we'll open it up for some questions. We'll have a few questions, and then we'll take some questions from you. So I've been at the Portland Art Museum going on 5 years, and when I arrived, this museum has one of the premier Native American collections in the world, really, especially in terms of Northwest Coast Native American art. Just an exquisite collection. Around 5,000 objects when I arrived, but it was about 95% historic material when I arrived, and because of my research, my dissertation work, I'm Coastal Chumash from Santa Barbara, and my work has looked at how Native Americans are often written out of the story, especially in museums. And so we often see beautiful historic materials made by Native Americans pre-1900 or right around the turn of the century. We don't often hear about living Native Americans, and in California that's particularly problematic because from San Francisco to San Diego there are no federally recognized tribes, and there are lots of museums telling the story of Native Americans, but only in a very past-centered way. And so when I arrived here and saw that we have this really beautiful collection of historic Native American art, it's like, we need to wake it up, right? We need to put these beautiful ancestral objects in context or in connection with their descendants, with the descendant communities, and really show Portland and the visitors to Portland what Native American art really is, what it is today. And so we've rotated contemporary. I've quadrupled the contemporary Native American art holdings in the 4.5 years that I've been here, and we established the Center for Contemporary Native American Art in the permanent galleries that really highlights living artists. We're in the second rotation of artists in that space now, really grappling with the issues that are most relevant, most urgent in Indian country. So these are skilled, wonderfully talented young people who are essentially emerging artists who get to show their work at the Portland Art Museum now. And then we just closed Contemporary Native Photographers in the Edward Curtis Legacy, which highlighted the work of Wendy Red Star, Will Wilson, and Zig Jackson in dialogue with the stereotypes left behind by Edward S. Curtis. And about 3 years ago, has it been that long? 2.5 years ago, Karen reached out to me and asked me if our institution might be interested in an exhibition that she was planning, Native Fashion Now. And not only do I love Karen's work, and she had just curated a show called Shape Shifting that was groundbreaking, contemporary Native American art. I really respected her work and knew that this was going to be an incredible show, and we signed on right away. We were the first venue, I think, to sign on, and we've been excited ever since. I've been excited ever since, So I'm going to let her talk about that, but I just really wanted to sort of contextualize the work that we're doing here at the Portland Art Museum, that was just fertile ground for Native Fashion Now to arrive and for us to really dive in and bring these incredible artworks to you. We've added a component, a Portland-based component, and I'm happy to talk with you about that, but Karen's going to talk a little bit about that as well. I think that my job is done now, and I'm going to turn the mic.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Am I? Here we go. Okay.
Let's go ahead and cue the video before Karen starts.
Oh, yeah, there's a really amazing dynamic video that's circulating on social media and online. So thank you all for coming, and thank you so much, Deana, for that wonderful welcome and your very generous words, and also for taking that leap of faith and taking this exhibition. I could not be happier. The installation is incredible. It's really a beautiful installation. So thank you, and thank you to Stephanie Parrish and to the Portland Art Museum for having me, and to our incredible panel of Native artists. It's really an honor to be up on this stage. So I was asked to talk a little bit about the incubation process of this exhibition and how it came about. And so I'm going to start by telling you that originally my idea for this contemporary Native fashion show came about in conjunction with another show it was supposed to be partnered with at the Peabody Essex Museum. It was an exhibition curated by an outside American art specialist, and he was looking at Native American portraits and images of Native people. Half of the show was going to be outsiders looking in, people like Andy Warhol, 19th century portraits of Native people, and then the other half was going to be Native people looking at themselves. And so there was going to be this sort of back and forth dialogue about the consumption of Native people and this phenomenon. And so I wanted to do a show that kind of complemented that, but also capitalized on the power of Native American art from the Native American perspective. So I thought that would be like a good counterpart. And then that exhibition didn't come to pass, and while it would have been a great show, it actually wound up working out in our favor better because my show grew. It more than doubled in size because of that. So that's good. I greedily snatched up that space on the floor, and my checklist expanded kind of quickly. So anyway, part of the reason why I wanted to do an exhibition on contemporary Native fashion is because on the heels of the shape-shifting exhibition that Deana mentioned, that was a show that aimed to dismantle stereotypes of Native American art by integrating contemporary with historical Native American art in surprising ways, and using ideas to explore things like identity and place and change in Native American art, politics, and it's over the past 20 years or so, the Peabody Essex Museum has been working to upend popular notions of what Native American art and culture is. And so this show was exciting to me because it was focusing on contemporary, putting the emphasis on living artists, and focusing on a fairly particular set of creative expressions. And because contemporary Native American fashion really does permeate pretty much all of what we do, if you start looking and you open your eyes, it was like coming out of the woodwork. And contemporary Native fashion has been growing. You all will sort of attest to the fact that it's nothing new necessarily right now, but there's been a proliferation, and the field of contemporary Native fashion has grown exponentially, and it now includes things like T-shirts and high end, low end, all kinds of things in between. And so between that and the fact that the Peabody Essex Museum has been doing more and more exhibitions on fashion writ large, our audience really responds well to it. It all just sort of seemed to come together, and it was the perfect opportunity, the perfect timing, perfect marriage, and I had a lot of enthusiasm within the institution and from the artists and from my colleagues. So that's sort of how it was born. And then comes the fun part and hard part of trying to get a checklist together, because there are so many artists working, designers working, and there's also only so many objects that can fit on the floor of an exhibition space. So I wanted to try to have a good representation of emerging designers as well as established designers. There were groundbreaking Native designers whose work I had to include, and then through the process of working with a group of advisors on the exhibition, I was introduced to other artists whose work I might not have been familiar with. And then one thing leads to another. I wanted to have as good of a sort of equal distribution among geographic regions and gender. Sometimes I was more successful than others, but I think that's also indicative of where the pulses are with contemporary Native fashion too, and where there are really strong regional markets. But there's also a really strong global market for Native American fashion that our designers can also tell you a little bit more about. So I think over a year or a little bit more, the checklist started to come together, and it's kind of like this chicken and the egg thing when you're doing a show, because you have ideas and themes that you're trying to work on, and do those themes come from the objects and the garments and the accessories, or does the idea come first and then you fill the idea bucket with the objects? So there was a little bit of both. And ultimately, we landed with 4 thematic sections that all underscore the incredible creative output of contemporary Native fashion designers today. And the first theme is Pathbreakers, that you can see here. These are groundbreaking designers who have really changed the landscape of contemporary Native design. All 3 here on the stage are in the Pathbreakers section and have been incredibly important Native designers. And they're important not only for the work that they've done to break paths, but also bring up the next generation and mentor our next generation of designers. The second theme is Revisitors, and this is a section that really celebrates Native designers and artists who are inspired by the past but expand on it in the present. The third section is activators, and this is a section I kind of refer to as street style, streetwear. It's how you express your personal vision and personal politics in everyday clothing, because after all, what we wear every day says something about who you are, whether you think about it very consciously or not. The fourth section is provocateurs, and these are designers who take familiar forms and motifs and materials and hurl them entirely into brand new foreign dimensions, and it's a really wonderful assemblage of one-of-a-kind garments and accessories. And then the fifth section, Deana, this is her brainchild, and it's called Motivators. And there's a group of work by the 8th generation and Nike N7 designers, and they're Portland, Oregon-based companies or Northwest companies that have collaborated deeply with Native designers. And so I think with that, did I cover? Okay. So with that, we're going to pass the microphone over to Dorothy Grant and have her tell you a little bit about herself and her what inspires her and her story.
Dorothy, if you want to.
Sure.
Just the big green arrow you will.
I'd like to start, well, I'm from the Haida Nation from Alaska. I was born in Heidelberg, Alaska. But I want to first thank Karen Kramer for having this vision and bringing us all together on this incredible stage through this exhibition and helping move our careers forward. And I think we all can benefit from that, and we have. So thank you. Hawa, I just want to say that to you, and for Deana Dartt's vision with her and hosting it here at the Portland Art Museum, which is closer to my home. I think I will be visiting Portland more often. My career is now 30 years from around May 16th, 1986. I created my first fashion garment and was debuted at Expo 1986 in Vancouver, BC. And so I celebrated the 30 years, and it's kind of like shocking even to me to say the word 30 years. So I do feel like a path breaker from way back, and my work is based on my cultural upbringing. As a young woman, I started out as an artist weaving baskets. I learned from my grandmother how to make spruce root hats and baskets and regalia. I was a big regalia maker for several years in my 20s. And we at the time were talking about, in a whole group of artists like Bill Reed, Robert Davidson, Joe David, all those sort of bigger Northwest Coast name artists, would gather around and talk about innovation. And one artist said, somebody's got to do fashion before, of Northwest Coast art, somebody needs to get into fashion. So that was the seed, and that was Bill Reed. So I started back with that in mind, 1983. So in 1987, I went to design school in Vancouver, which was more of a diploma type of school for a year. And I always went in with that concept of Haida art on clothing and how it would fit with the body, and how I could incorporate the artwork. So that has been always my main thread throughout all my work, and it's based on my cultural aesthetic. It's based on that we have a word in Haida. I should actually show you some pictures. We have a word in Haida, and it's called yagudang. And it's an expression of self-respect and respecting others. So my whole line of clothing is based on yagudang. If you guys want to say it, yagudang, yagudang. It really embodies respect. And for a person to respect themselves, it really is about dressing up and showing your best. So that's the whole concept behind my label. This is a tuxedo for women. It's a she-wolf tuxedo, and I've done a lot of tuxedos for both men and women. This is my own custom design fabric. It's called Eagle Flight, and I produce this yardage in silk, and I'm coming out with a new design in raven right now with silk and linen. Wasn't ready for this exhibition, but soon. Anyways, I've done a lot with this fabric, and the dress that's in the exhibition is from the same design work. In various colors, of course. I've done silver black. I've mixed applique here with this coat. It's called the Raven Opera coat. It's lined in the eagle silk pattern and appliqued with ravens on the hemline. So my work is, I try to use more classic shapes in clothing, and I apply the artwork and how I feel it best fits with the body. My recent milestone was dressing Dwayne E. Howard of the Revenant movie, who played Elk Dog. How many of you have seen the Revenant movie? So he asked me to dress him for the Oscars. He got invited, and I literally had a week to pull it together. In one day, I got a tuxedo from a client, and I said, I need to borrow that tuxedo. I didn't have to beg him. He says, go for it, Dorothy. Do whatever you want. So we fitted him. We got him dressed just like this. He said he felt like $10 million, and he looked it. It's a dream, I think, that non-native designers dream of. And for me to have him walk the red carpet, he said it was a 2.5-hour walk down the red carpet. So he let me live the experience with him when he told me the stories afterwards. So it's a designer's dream to have that happen, and to have that kind of global coverage. When Renato, what was his name, the best director, he won best director. When he was up giving his acceptance speech, that's when they panned in on all the four Native actors that were in the movie. And Dwayne, of course, was one of the principal Native actors, and they panned in on him, on his tuxedo, and his smile on his face. It was like I jumped out of my chair and I did the happy dance. And I do feel like that it set me on a whole nother level of my brand. And talking about branding, I mean, that's kind of something that I think I could talk about to Native youth, or just even in a business kind of college setting, because I literally, over the last 30 years, branded myself. I didn't have any corporate help. I just did it intuitively. And there are certain sort of ways of doing branding from a corporate level that people would talk about and teach, but I, at some point, would like to teach that from a Native aesthetics point of view. And this milestone that I reached with this, it was February 28th this year that I dressed Dwayne. I just was humbled by it, because Number one, Dwayne is a spiritual man. He practices sweat lodge and ceremonies, and so it was a real honor. We felt like we really collaborated together, and that whole embodiment of Yagudang was there in him. As he walked the red carpet, he had respect, he had self-respect, he had everybody's respect. And he had said he had men looking at him, wanting that tuxedo. He had women looking at him, asking where he got that tuxedo. So he had business cards. He did good by me. I'm just thrilled. I'm happy in my position in my life right now. I had somebody cut me off when it's not time to move on. But I had retail stores in downtown Vancouver for 17 years, and it was great. It was great, but the retail scene in Vancouver and big cities, it's a hard gig. There's so much that's involved in owning your own store, let alone manufacturing your own garments and branding yourself. And there's just so much involved in that. That's why I feel like I can teach branding. But I left that behind in 2011, and just I'm back to where I was like 25 years ago and making clothing out of my own studio, a lot of custom made to measure. I'm still producing fabrics and accessories. I do a line of handbags and shawls and scarves and ties. So I'm pretty accessible, I think, to the average person or anybody who wants to buy a piece of wearable art. So my main method of marketing is through my website, through word of mouth, through various trade shows like Santa Fe Indian Market. I do about 5 shows a year. So that's how I keep carrying on with my passion for Yagudang and making people feel proud of themselves. Oh, yeah.
Wa upapo ai ai khama ta atu te ma e mo wane I the tat ai nai na awama kai yuna mana pawan nai anaku queen met kai ho o awan. Thank you all of you for having me here. My name is Water Lily. I'm from Taos Pueblo, At ai nai awama. I'm a Water Clan native, and I'm grateful to be here on your land. Thank you for the natives that are from this arena to invite me and bring me this far. Thank you, Peabody Essex Karen, for your vision and everything that Dorothy said, reiterating 1,000 times over. And Deana for having us over here and carrying on the torch so that we can continue to be speaking in volumes of all of our years and years of hard work. I have 2 beautiful women on either side of me. And if I would go into depths of how much I respect them, I'd probably start crying. I've known them since I was a teenager. I've respected them both since I was a teenager. And they have guided me and they have taken me under their wings in ways that I hope the youth will appreciate elders the way elders should always be respected. I wasn't always somebody to listen because I was raised with a mother who opened up a gallery the night before I was born, downtown Santa Fe, the first Native American gallery owner. And she was dancing in a buckskin dress that my grandfather made. He was a hunter and a leader of our village. And, after that, she put me in a stack of Navajo rugs, and she put me in this gallery scene where I was always around amongst artists. My brother started Santa Fe Pueblo Youth Program when I was age 5. I came from a family of championship powwow dancers. I'm traditional. My children have been raised traditionally in the village, and I've also taken them to their Navajo side of the culture, so they know their Navajo side. With all of that upbringing, a grandfather who also was in movies. My mind was always going 1,000 miles an hour in every possible direction, that even these two brilliant, disciplined women on either side of me, all the advice that they gave me, I still had to go and do my own thing, like running and bouncing and flying off the walls all the time. And it kind of shows perfectly in the parasols. They're hanging, but that's because I'm a severe dyslexic. My mind will always be going in. I think, like, I see these wonderful entities and spirits that come from all facets of life, because Taos Pueblo was like the Pompeii of the United States. We were a main trade center. My native name, Water Lily, comes from South America. It was a medicinal trade, traded to the highest medicine man of our village and women. And I come from the medicine man family and women. So I felt the responsibility of showing the world the brilliance of our people pre-Columbus and the amount of stories that were never told by our people. And now, as designers, we can tell this story. We've been given a platform to be able to tell this story. And I want it to be coming from my heart and my soul. It's taboo in my culture to sell or give my traditional iconography away. My pueblo, for the most part, makes things that are going to deteriorate from nature. Some of my pieces are very living organism pieces that you will feel the very essence of nature very apparent in there. And there's been this whole misconcept who Native Americans are in the way of our religion, that we're like savages with just iconography in front of us. No. We are using raw materials that were entities, these spirits that came to people that could visualize that. And I don't want to deny myself not to be able to visual and feel and see what I'm seeing at ceremonies. Like my scarf that I'm wearing right now is symbolic of the wild berries that we pick in our mountains. They're not always fresh when we eat them. We have to preserve them for the winter. So this is when they're dry berries. And this is from the desert. You lay them on the earth, and our desert is golden. Sunset hits them, it's golden. And they're brown. The purple turns brown. I try to take the very essence of who we are, because that's the way I could find myself. I'm not a linear thinker. I'm a thinker that undulates a thought like a darn pinball machine, and it comes out either $1,000 or, oh darn, I hit the gutter, you know? But that's because I'll experiment and experiment with as much passion as I had now to 33 years ago when I was in high school, bothering artists in Santa Fe. Please teach me this. Will you hire me, or can I sweep your floor? You know, there was a period where I stopped doing my art, and it was right before Project Runway. I did Project Runway, and that was in season 11, and I was the runner-up. The recipient is from here in Portland, Michelle, and she's been floating around last night, and she's going to help us with other stuff too. Nonetheless, before I did Project Runway, I couldn't pay anybody to go into my studio. And now I have to work with my studio windows closed and curtains closed, you know. And I've had people wait out in the parking lot in an RV waiting for me to come out the door. I mean, and then I'm like, and my boyfriend's like, you know, I don't want anybody to kidnap you, so make sure that the door is locked. And so it's been wonderful, because I then had a platform to explain to the industry. Everybody that was in the fashion industry in New York got to hear what I had to say about being Native American. And I had to be extremely mindful, because from the time that I've been doing this, it's been a passion of mine to be able to speak volumes with knowing that there are other people behind me from every single culture in North America to South America that have survived. And to do that, you have to be graceful, and you have to remember your upbringing, but not shove your beliefs in everybody's face so that they're terrified, because guess what? Every culture has what we have. We all have a sense of nature and its resources. And we all have the sense of that we respect one another, sitting next to each other and listening and taking the time to be aware. Because Native culture is about being aware of your surroundings. That's why I did this photo shoot here behind me in Abiquiu. It was really important. I did this photo shoot. It's the Ghost Ranch, where George O'Keeffe came from. The piece that's in this collection was the first piece that was on Project Runway, and that piece was supposed to be, the challenge was to do a piece that was looking at Manhattan from a boat. So when we're floating along, and then everybody's looking at, who's that girl that's in there? She's not even fashion-worthy, why is she here? So I was like, oh, whatever, stay focused, you have a responsibility. And so then I thought of George O'Keeffe and Agnes Martin. And I thought of George O'Keeffe's painting that is with a skyscraper, and the perspective is going into the clouds, and her windows make the perspective. And then I thought about Agnes Martin, who did graphite on paper and on canvas, and I said, that would be a wonderful segue to make something inspired by them. That way when I get on stage, I can tell those naysayers, So then when I did, and I made this dress, it was very modern, and it was one of my textiles, because I love doing textiles. Nothing expresses who we are as Native American designers without the brilliance of knowing what our textiles are going to convey. What are we trying to say? And I definitely, when I'm a designer that's contemporary, I want to be a designer that is so damn contemporary that the youth will stop and listen and keep their cultures alive. I choose to live at Taos Pueblo because I don't want my culture to die. I don't want any excuses from any pipsqueak to tell me they can't do something modern and brilliant with all the technology that is here right now. So I have made sacrifices to not be in the city, but I come from a brilliant family. A grandfather who did films, a brother who started Pueblo Up Youth Program, a mother who opened up a gallery the night before she was pregnant, and she was dancing in her buckskin dress. It's not like by chance that I'm doing what I'm doing. I think it chose me. And if I don't take that passion and try to show then the youth that everything is viable and you can do it and you can still keep your culture, then I'm failing. And I don't want to, because my ancestors didn't fail for me. So it's that time, that turnaround. So that's who I am. Tom. Oh yeah, more pictures. Oh yeah. Yeah, I spent so much money on this photo shoot. We better look at these pictures. That's a desert flower inspired by one of George O'Keeffe's flowers. I would never try to do a painting of hers, but the brush and the black, it's all hand-painted. Everything I do starts off white, and it's all hand-painted. And that was the finale piece that I did in Project Runway, which is dyed blue horsehair, and all of the micaceous paillettes have a sterling silver base around them, and then it's all sewn, the mica is sewn onto the silver, and then it's all silk organza on silk charmeuse. And my whole collection had over 350 handmade paillettes. And then on there are even smaller, just sterling silver, round pounded out paillettes that are on the garment, and there's 750 of those. But you see, what I wanted to do is, I had a scarf the other night at a pop-up shop. Thank you, Lena, for being so generous to host that for us. This beautiful woman in the front. Appreciate your support. It was called Turquoise Trail, and the scarf I named Turquoise Trail after the Silk Trail because, for us in the Southwest, it was the Turquoise Trail a lot of times, but brought out the rest of the culture, and you continue to see that. And I put paillette embellishment on this dress because it was important to show that my culture is known for its micaceous pottery. It's a different way to express who we are without screaming native. I want to try to bring the youth into a higher, like, challenge yourself. Look what our ancestors did with the materials that when they first saw a ribbon. Look at the many different ways ribbon from Lyon was used throughout all Native country. It's insane. That could be a whole show in itself. So therefore, I want them to really know that they have that capability of pushing it. And they don't have to mass produce if they want. If they want to make one individual thing, that's fine too. Just, respect what your vision is. And then this dress is all hand-painted skirt that I had hoped that Miss Obama would wear. She came to beautiful commencement speech in Santa Fe, and it brought tears to Indian country that she acknowledged our youth and her wisdom and her ability to address the parallels on so many levels and honor us like this. It's so heartfelt. Unfortunately, I didn't get to her in time because, they don't let you know about these things that are happening until last minute because of security purposes. But yeah, it would have been really nice. It's all hand-painted, and then the silk charmeuse is hand-dyed, and my eagle feather signature scarves. I should probably also tell you that in the presentation that you also see outside, besides the parasols and the dress, there's 2 videos on site. My son, Gabriel Mozart Abeda, did the 2 videos for me. He's a graduate of Vancouver Film School, and we're working on a documentary of my 2 children's creative lives. My daughter's an installation artist, and then my creative life, so that the people can see how a lot of this really runs in our family, in our blood, and we're always trying to pass the wisdom and knowledge on. So thank you, everyone.
Hi, I'm Wendy Ponca, and I'm Osage Indian from Oklahoma. I live on the reservation in my grandfather's old house. They call them the original latte houses because back in the 1920s, we were kind of like the Kuwaitis of the day. We were millionaires just overnight. And so the government came in and helped us spend our money and built us houses and bought us cars, and we had tailor-made clothes and shoes, and just drove around to watch Maria Tall Chief dance. That was what they did, and gambled. And consequently, we lost a lot of our culture and a lot of our lives. And there's a big movie actually going to come out about a book that was written on the Osage murders. And I think Leonardo DiCaprio got the rights to it. So it'll be really interesting. You'll kind of get the history of who we were and where we kind of came from. And amongst all this craziness, we let our traditional religion, we had a very dogmatic, very, very strict society built around our religion, and priests were the head of our tribe. And every decision that was made they made it. And it would take 2 weeks or more at a time to make one decision seriously. And so while these decisions were being made on whatever anybody did, my family, we had in our villages, they were lodges all in a circle, kind of an oval circle, and there was 2 lodges in the inside, and one was for the Shiju chiefs, the Star Chiefs, and the other lodge was from the Hunka Chiefs, and the Hunka Chiefs were the Earth Chiefs, and those Earth families were divided into 2, the Earth and the water, terra firma and water. And my family is the water family, like Patricia. And we're called the Washaji, and that's where the word Osage came. It's the bastardization of the word Washaji from French to English, and that's how we got our name of our tribe. The real name of our tribe is Neokonska, and that means children of the middle waters, but now everybody calls us Osage from our family's name, Washaji. So in this piece that I have in the show right here is more of a performance piece like that I do. I do all kinds of clothing. I make regular clothes, and I wish I could be as good a tailor as you are, Dorothy. Oh my God, she's my favorite designer. She's so perfect. I do wedding dresses and stuff like that too, but I kind of like to jump out of the box every once in a while and do something really wild and historical. Like Patricia, she's a good friend of mine, known each other for years. Anyway, what I did was I did this piece right here about our creation myth in our tribe, or it's a reality to me, but archaeologists and anthropologists call our creation beliefs myths. So just to make that clear, I really believe this. But it starts off, to make a long story short, that people came down from the stars, met with the people on Earth, intermarried, and that's how you become Osage. And to be Osage, you have to be half star person and half Earth person. Everybody in the tribe is that. And our whole society is built on that one concept, because you have clans that are either Earth or star. And so in your clan system, then if you're, let's say you're an Earth clan, then you have star names. So everything is based on that concept. You can't have one without the other. So in this piece right here, what I did was I made 3 couples, is basically what I did. And each couple represents a star person and an Earth person. Kind of like my idea of what happened. I'm just kind of like making the story up in my mind, like a Disney story, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, what I tried to do was show the star people in the Mylar, and using things that, maybe they acculturated from the Earth people that they met. So I put some furs and eagle feathers and stuff like that, and mica, silver. And then I have the Earth people, and all those clothes that the Earth people have on, I made them exactly the way we would have worn them pre-contact, European contact. So it's all hand-tanned buckskins and bear claws and shells and mica and paint from paint rocks. We used to, paint our face with paint rocks and stuff, and charcoal mixed with water and some glue, and just everything that you can imagine that would be, that we made. And I literally went to, I'm sorry, I forgot to say where the photo shoot was at. It's at the Cahokia Mounds in St. Louis. If anybody have been there, are you familiar with the Cahokia Mounds? Well, it's, the Cahokia Mounds are large mound structures that are huge. In fact, the main mound, Monk's Mound at Cahokia Mounds, is as large as the Great Pyramid of Giza, believe it or not. And maybe some of these pictures will show it. So I took my models up there, and Osages back probably about, I'm thinking maybe when they left their 12th century or so, we were there at Cahokia, and then we moved on out to the plains. We kept going farther west. And we knew this, but so now the archaeologists and anthropologists are saying, yeah, from what we've described from your old chants and ceremonies, that, yeah, you guys were the ones who were there. Well, thank you for telling us that. All right, so we're going on with that for now on. It's a belief amongst all of us, yay. So here, you can see the mounds in this photograph. And so I try to, yay, you guys are meeting and you're going to get married. That's what's going on here at Cahokia. And it was really fun. That photo shoot was great. And the people at the Cahokia Mounds, the people who run it, were really, really nice to us. Let us stay there late in the evening and kept it open for us. They were really hospitable. They were great. It was really good. There was a lot of spirits there, and some of them got caught in the film. And I try to keep some of the photos that had you could just feel them around us the whole time. And I knew before we even went there to do the shoot, I had gone there before and kind of scouted it out. I was like, there's going to be UFOs and all kinds of things. Seriously, and we caught one on film. I don't know if they kept it in this group here, but this is on top of Monk's Mound, and you can see in the background, it's so high above. It's over 100 feet. Am I right? Over 100 feet. It's hard to get up there to the top. Isn't it hot and humid there? In fact, St. Louis was called Mound City before they gave it the name St. Louis. And these mounds are on the east side of the Mississippi River. St. Louis is on the west side. And all of St. Louis had these fabulous mounds, and they were like, some of them were structured like this, and they had parks and everything. But then, of course, they bulldozed them down and put up banks and who knows whatever else, and just literally shoved all of the ruins into the Mississippi River. Bones, artifacts, you name it. It just went in the river. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was sorry. I get a little radical there. Okay, so there's just a picture of, and I use all Osage models. All my models are Osage. And I do jewelry and hair pieces and all kinds of stuff. The one on the right is my youngest daughter, Alex. Yeah, she graduated from the Kansas City Art Institute with her degree in painting. She's an oil painter. But she also does computer work and stuff nowadays too. But I graduated from Kansas City Art Institute, and my parents graduated from Kansas City Art Institute. So we're 3 generations from the Kansas City Art Institute, which is, I don't know, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah. And then I have my master's degree as well in art therapy, and I taught at the Institute of American Indian Arts for almost 20 years. And Patricia was one of my students, one of my better students, by the way. And I started a art therapy program there with a grant from Kellogg Foundation, and I'm a grant writer, and to help the students at IA learn art therapy techniques, and then we do summer programs with the kids at Indian centers, and I don't know where they do it now, but we did it in Denver, in Albuquerque, in Santa Fe, and did after-school programs with Native kids just doing art, because I seriously believe all art is therapy. I mean, it's really good therapy for me, and I think it's also therapy for the viewers, not just the artists themselves, but to see things, I think or wearing art, to me is healing, literally, Oh, thank you. Oh, yay, it's over. Okay, so I'm done multitasking and.
Wendy, will you just tell us about your blanket while you?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'll hold it for you.
I just did this design. Just came out in May. In fact, I did it for a charity for my tribe, and. Oh, okay, thank you. Anyway, I designed Pendletons to be worn, as opposed to, you can throw them on your bed or whatever you want, but I always design them because we wear them in our tribe traditionally, and mainly we wear them on Sunday, which is tomorrow, actually, of our dances. They're going on in Oklahoma right now, and I'm missing them. I'm kind of sad, but on Sunday we have giveaway day, and we wear our blankets to dance in, and this is the way you wear it. Like that. So these blankets are already, I think they're sold out, believe it or not. And they did a limited edition of 2,000 of them, I think. And anyway, you'll know it's the real one. It has a label on it with my name on it. So I had done a blanket design before for a charity, and it was supposed to be a limited edition, but somebody got a hold of the design and reproduced it. Oh, no. And that's okay, because I think, to me, people get upset about other people stealing Native designs or whatever, and I see their frustration, but to me, I'm flattered. I'm like, wow, you liked it enough, you want to steal it? I've even bought pieces off of people who have copied my design. At India Market. This guy got these Guatemalan women to weave this material for one of my designs, my blanket designs, and he was selling pillows on the plaza, and I was like, woo, that's a nice design there. Where did you get that? And I just played it off, like, oh, I didn't know. And this lady was working there, and she was telling me all about it. And I go, I want to buy that. I bought it. They didn't even know who I was. I bought it off of them. So, but I know people who have had some bad experiences with big label designers, and they feel hurt because they're artists and native artists, and they're not, making the money that they feel they should be making. And I understand that, but I think I'm still a starving artist, struggling artist. I'm very bad at marketing myself. These ladies are excellent at it. So in the questions you guys give about the kids in the future, I'm not a good person to give an answer for that, because I just do it from my heart, all my art from my heart. And I mainly make a lot of clothes for my family to dance in. And the other place that I sell my art is to museum collections. I make a lot of traditional Osage attire, accoutrements, clothing, whatever you want to call it, and they're in permanent collections, and then, or people order them from me so they can dance in them or whatever. But I'm not as prolific as these beautiful ladies right here, because I do everything by hand. I'm my own slave labor. I have a studio and I just work all the time. I'm not very good at technology because most of my techniques take so long. I do a lot of hand beading, sewing, weaving, whatever it takes, hand dyeing, silk screen printing. I do all that stuff too. I just do it all myself. And every piece is one of a kind that I do, unless I design for a company like Pendleton, which I went and visited with them yesterday. Yahoo! I'm gonna do a couple more blankets. It was like going to Mecca for me if I was a Muslim, going to the Pendleton store, headquarters down there, I loved it. Oh my goodness. It's a big deal on our tribe to give away Pendletons. That's what we do. We give them away. And so I grew up with that, and so to be at that Pendleton store was like one of my aspirations, dreams of my life. And actually to design a Pendleton when I was a young kid, I had dreams of when I was at the Art Institute. I wanted to design a Pendleton. I can't even remember what else I wanted to do, something else. But the other thing that I haven't achieved yet that I would like to do is have a piece in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. So that's my goal, eh? So thank you very much. I'm done.
Stephanie, how are we doing on time? Okay, great. So Karen and I each have a couple of questions that we want to pose to you, and any one of you can answer, or all of you can. And Patricia touched on it a little bit. Why does this particular show matter? And why now? And what is Native Fashion next? Right? We were talking earlier about how the show was assembled almost 3 years ago now, right? Or 2 years ago. And so Native Fashion Now is actually ahead of Native Fashion Now, right? And so what is Native Fashion Now, and why does this show matter?
Sure. Well, we're like artists. We're not just fashion designers. We're artists, and it's sometimes very difficult to promote yourself. And when this kind of stage happens, it's like done for us. Thank you very much. And it brings it to a whole nother level, a whole nother audience that can appreciate what we do. So acting singularly doesn't have that same impact as an exhibition such as Native Fashion Now. So that's how I feel about it, and I'm excited for the whole next year because it's going to be traveling to Tulsa, right, and then next NMAI in New York City. So it's like we've got a whole new audience everywhere, and it elevates us all, and it helps to bind us all together, really, and for the viewer to really understand our work, where we come from. What was the other component of that question?
What's next?
Native Fashion next. Well, I guess hopefully what I'd like to see is that we have the same opportunities in fashion, in mainstream, from those like other mainstream designers who actually copy our work or take bits and pieces from our culture, that we have those same opportunities, that whether somebody comes in and from a corporation and wants to collaborate, that we have those opportunities to push ourselves forward, because I think there's several designers that have that ability, have that, there's talent there, and I'd like to see that mainstream fashion actually takes us on and go, we want to work with you. That's what I'd like to see Native Fashion Next be.
So for Native Fashion Now, for me, is extremely important because when I was on Project Runway, I had the responsibility of really representing the Native American at large. I didn't want to try to say that I knew everything about Native Americans, but I wanted to be an icebreaker of we exist and we're still very alive. And throughout the whole competition, they kept saying, "Well, who are you? I don't get it. I don't understand. You know about all this modern art. You know, you're savvy. You're not getting mad. You're working. You're showing us things we've never seen before." And my finale collection was called. It was dedicated to trees. And I said, my collection is dedicated to trees because I am one tree in the forest of the Native Americans. You will understand me if you walk through the forest of the Native Americans and remember that I'm only one tree. The rest of the trees in the forest represent different cultures, music, sound, everything, food, garments, whatever every culture represents. And I can't speak for them. Those cultures speak volumes for themselves. So please walk through the forest of the Native American. And I feel that this show is starting to open up the doors for people to recognize that diversity. There's not one designer that could possibly represent the whole Native American community. It's too beautiful. It's so immense. And this gives opportunity for everybody's aesthetics to be appreciated and celebrated, because there's not one designer in the whole industry that could clothe all human race, because you've got hookers, you've got business people, you've got musicians that are classical or rock and roll. I mean, and the reason I say this is because I've been to Fashion Week in Milano, New York, and I've seen, over 72 shows in 1 week, and there's a designer for every single personality. So it's important that in this show, we have designers for every single personality. So for me, the next, and that's important in this show, is to show that Native Fashion Now is a stepping stone for Native Fashion tomorrow. And that we all have our own agenda, and we're all taking our businesses into another direction. Some of us want to do couture, avant-garde, and we're fine with that. Some of us want to be able to mass produce, and some of us want to do both. But each and every individual should be able to have a platform to vocalize what their vision and what they want to do with their designs. Thank you.
Do we have time for my question? Okay, and then we'll open up the floor. Great. So we talked about this a little bit, but I'd love for you to talk more specifically about advice that you would have to Native design students, Native future fashion designers. Any advice that you're grounded in, and things that you could share to future students?
Yeah, I can address that. There are three things that I can share with youth, and it's the three things that I have practiced through my 30 years, and it's having a vision, a passion, a statement, really, like companies have a vision statement, have a mission statement, and as individuals should have that statement, that thing that makes them get up in the morning and go to work. What is it that motivates people? For me, it's I said it's yagudang. It's that feeling of embodiment, of self-respect, of creating clothing that has some sense of empowerment to the wearer. So that's my vision statement, mission statement for that makes me get up in the morning. Secondly, it's for me, and I think it's very true. It's about being faithful to your customer. Respect your customer, be faithful to them, and deliver what you say you're going to do. Number 3, it's very simple. Just show up. Just show up. No matter if you don't know something, fake it till you make it was always kind of what I said. And it has proved to be very grounding and true. Just show up, and the universe will help you. If you don't show up, you failed. So that's what I would say to youth.
And really quick, I'd like to also say to the youth that without the passion, you're not going to make it. If you don't keep your vision in hindsight and keep nurturing it, it's never going to happen. You have to have the ability to have the courage to go into a world where they don't know you, and be mindful. Don't forget that you're coming from a beautiful culture, and you're still part of the human race, because along this very highly competitive fashion industry, there are people who will knock you down and take your morality apart like no tomorrow. But that's their baggage. If the youth knows they're already coming from ancestors that have given us this ability to have a voice, then there's nothing to fear. Because if you know what you're doing, if you know your vision, then there's nothing to fear, because you're only going to be doing what you can do, and along the way, you will learn. Nobody goes into anything knowing everything about anything. You constantly are teaching yourself, and you will keep teaching yourself until you're dead, because if you think you know everything, then go to bed.
True.
So you know, it's just that type of same passion. Self-checks. Am I still being true? Am I still challenging myself? Am I bringing something new and brilliant to the table? Don't settle for being, oh, I'm there. Nobody's ever there. Fashion's about change. It's like reinventing the palette. Let it reinvent itself. Give it that stimulation. Keep that light and that passion alive. That's what I would tell the youth.
And I'd like to say something too. And I know this is really hard for all artists, not just Native artists, to do. But one thing that we 3 here have done together is we collaborate. And thank you, ladies, for helping us with this collaboration. And I think a really good way for Native people, young people, to do is get with your friends and have a fashion show. I mean, we've had fashion shows together, and it works well. Does well. We hire Native models. You know, not great venues, some museums, sometimes at bars. I mean, it doesn't matter. Study clubs for, whatever, but collaborate. I think collaboration with Native Americans, working together in a group, it makes you strong, makes you all strong, and we've done a lot of that. It's proven to be productive for us. So, and thank you, ladies, for helping us do that collaboration. I really appreciate it.
Pop-up. I think we need to wrap up, but before we do that, I want to talk about the pop-up. So some of you probably know about this, but Wendy, can I have the advancer? We actually have some slides. We've got some slides to prompt me. So tonight at the Ceremony House in Northeast Portland, away from the maddening crowd of the Starlight Parade, come join us. We've got 14 of the artists that are in Native Fashion now will be on site. There will be live models walking around and refreshments, beer, wine, tamales from Tamale Boy, and then fashions from all of these artists. And then Sunday, July 10th at 2 p.m., Jessica Metcalf will be here from Beyond Buckskin. And then a two-part series we're calling Critical Conversations, Native Fashion and Appropriation. The first one with Sam McCracken from Nike N7 and Eden Dawn, a local fashion editor. And then in September, Louis Gong from 8th Generation and one of his designers will be here. There's Louis. Louis just this weekend opened a storefront in Pike's Place Market. So he's really on the cutting edge of marketing Native American design. And then in August, Miller Family Free Day, we're partnering with Nike N7 and bringing artist, designer, activist Bunky Echohawk here, who will be doing one of his paint performance pieces out in the park blocks, and we'll have skateboarders in the front of the museum. This time we'll make it a thing. Usually they're there and we're shooing them away, but we're gonna invite them. So there'll be music and Bunky, and it'll be a really fun thing for young people. So we've got lots of stuff planned for the summer, and I want to thank these beautiful artists again for being path breakers and for coming out and opening this show in the very best way. Thank you so much, and thank you, Karen Kramer, for having the vision to begin with. So thank you all for coming.